It started like a whisper in the dark. Out there, beyond the reach of our cities and the glow of our thoughts, something stirred in the silence between Mars and Jupiter. Not with noise, not with fire, but with presence, a shimmer, a flicker in the black. And suddenly everything we thought we knew about our solar system felt incomplete. The James Webb Space Telescope wasn't looking for this. It was just doing what it was built to do: observing, studying, collecting light from the beginning of time itself. But in one quiet sweep across the familiar belt of asteroids that circles our sun like an ancient scar, it caught something it shouldn't have, something that had no name, no registry, no explanation, something moving with grace and intent in a place that's supposed to be chaotic, jagged and cold. The asteroid belt is like a museum of forgotten creation, chunks of rock and ice left behind when the planets formed. It's not a place for miracles, just leftovers. But through that forgotten stretch, something moved, not tumbled, not drifted. It moved, like a thought being carried, like a message whispered not in words, but in light. At first, the James Webb team thought it was a glitch, a flare, maybe a reflection. But then it moved again, and then again. And suddenly, the telescope, perched a million miles from Earth, surrounded by nothing but silence, was watching something that wasn't supposed to be there. It was too fast to be a comet, too deliberate to be a rock. It glowed, but not like a planet catching sunlight. This light came from within, a deep pulsing shimmer. It was alive, in some strange mechanical way. Metallic, but not jagged. Smooth, flowing, like it had been built for a purpose that no one could guess. As it cut through the belt, it dodged asteroids with impossible precision, not by chance, not like something tossed and hoping for luck. It moved with choice, like it knew the terrain, like it had done this before. And then, midway through that ancient river of stone, it stopped. It hovered, not a drift, not a spin, a rotation, balanced, controlled, as if looking, as if it noticed us noticing it. That was the moment when everything changed. Back on Earth, telescopes scrambled. Scientists dropped everything. Eyes turned skyward, searching, desperate to confirm what Webb was seeing in piercing detail. But nothing matched the clarity of that great golden eye staring from the edge of everything. Still, what little they could see only confirmed one terrifying, breathtaking truth. This wasn't natural. This wasn't normal. The object's temperature was wrong. Too warm. It wasn't reflecting heat. It was generating it. The materials it was made of weren't ice, or rock, or anything from our periodic table of comfort. There were patterns in its shell, structures within its skin. It was crafted, or grown, or something stranger. Something we don't have words for yet. Then it moved again, gliding toward Vesta, one of the largest asteroids in the belt, almost as if it was inspecting it. As it passed, there were no disruptions, no collisions, no clouds of dust stirred up in its wake. Only silence. A presence cutting through time and stone like a ghost that had no reason to fear the living. People began to whisper. Could it be a probe? Was it watching us? Was it meant to be seen? In control rooms and dim-lit labs, scientists argued without raising their voices. Because this wasn't science fiction anymore. It was real, and it was happening now. Then came the signal. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even regular. But there it was, a rhythm, a pulse, not random, not chaotic, a frequency buried inside another frequency, like harmony inside melody, like meaning wrapped in silence. Nobody knew what it meant. Nobody knows still. All we know is it was there, as the object turned away, veering upward, away from the flat sheet of planets, curving above the solar system like it had seen enough. That's when Webb caught the final moment. A flash, a quiet burst from its rear. No fire, no trail, just energy, directed, clean, and then gone. It didn't crash, it didn't fade, it didn't explode, it left. And just like that, the thing that should never have been was no longer there. But we saw it. The data is real. The recordings exist. Scientists all over the world are still staring at them, days later trying to breathe as they realize what just passed us by. We don't know what it was. We may never know. But it crossed through our front yard. It walked through the oldest hallway in our solar system and didn't knock, didn't speak, didn't ask permission. And yet we watched it and it knew. No alarm was sounded, no sirens, just a quiet recalibration of what it means to feel alone in the universe. While the object was already a memory, slipping beyond the eyes of the telescope that had captured its passage, the silence it left behind was anything but empty. It was loaded, like the hush that falls after a secret is spoken aloud for the first time. Everyone who saw the data felt it, a sense that something had changed, though nothing had moved. The solar system hadn't tilted. No asteroid had shifted course. Mars still circled. Jupiter still loomed. But something fundamental, something underneath, was no longer the same. For decades, we've stared into the black, believing we understood it. We gave names to the planets, mapped their orbits, and labeled the dust between them as known. We taught it in classrooms, drew charts of the asteroid belt, calculated trajectories as if all of it was ours to predict. But none of our models accounted for something that could glide, pause, watch, and vanish. None of our assumptions made room for this. Somewhere in the quiet rooms of observatories and space agencies, people began re-examining everything. Old telescope logs were pulled. Files untouched for years were suddenly priceless. Data spikes and lens flares from the past, once dismissed as sensor error or cosmic noise, were now seen with new eyes. Eyes that had witnessed a sliver of the extraordinary. They were looking not for proof but for pattern. Had it happened before? Had we missed it? Had it passed us once or a dozen times while we were too busy believing we were alone? The thing is, this object didn't scream for attention. It didn't flash like a comet or burn like a meteor. It didn't shake the earth or pull on tides. It came quietly. It moved with grace. If Webb hadn't been pointed at that precise place, at that precise moment, we never would have known it came at all. And that, some say, is the most unsettling part. Because if it was just a rock, just a weird comet with strange materials, then why did it move like it was thinking? Why did it hesitate when it reached the densest part of the asteroid belt, as if deciding what to do next? Why did its path bend, not with the chaotic spin of nature, but with the intent of something navigating? And above all, what was it looking for? There are no answers yet, only ripples of questions. A group of signal theorists working quietly in Germany believe they've isolated layers in the radiation pulses left behind. Not noise, they insist, not randomness, but structure, harmony, the kind of math that doesn't just happen, it follows rules. Rules made by someone or something. One frequency nested inside another and another like Russian dolls of light. They don't claim it's a message, but they also won't say it isn't. Elsewhere, materials scientists are staring at spectroscopic data, baffled by readings that suggest layered compounds, something that resembles polymers, but not any kind Earth could create. Complex lattices, heat-resistant, flexible, yet strong. More advanced than anything we've ever sent into space, and composed of materials that shouldn't exist naturally in those configurations. It's as if someone built it with a purpose in mind, but not for war, not for mining, not for colonizing. Just observation. Propulsion experts are equally stunned. Whatever pushed the object forward left no chemical trace, no exhaust, no ion trail, no thermal bloom. Just a flash, clean and narrow, like a thought being projected, no explosion, no thrust, just motion, pure and silent. And the direction it took, out of the plane of our solar system, not into it, suggested it wasn't interested in us, only what lies beyond. But that doesn't mean it didn't notice we were watching. People ask, what if it was alien? But maybe that question is already behind us. Maybe the better question now is, why here? Why now? If it was meant to observe, why observe this old, dusty corridor between Mars and Jupiter? What could it learn from rocks that haven't changed in billions of years? Unless it wasn't observing the belt at all. Maybe it was watching something else. Maybe it came because of us. Maybe not to greet or warn or connect, but to simply check, to verify, to glance at this little system where a small blue planet just launched a telescope powerful enough to catch a passing whisper in the dark. And maybe it just wanted to see what we do. You'd think an event like this would make headlines across the world, but it didn't. Not the way it should have. Buried under noise, distracted by conflict, we barely noticed that something impossible had passed us by. 1,000 news feeds missed it. 1 billion people never heard. But those who did, they felt something, a tremor, a weight pressing on the edge of their thoughts. Because deep down, we all sense it. We're not the center. We're not alone. And the sky is not just a ceiling, it's a window. And sometimes something looks back. Time has passed. The object is gone. But it's not forgotten. The data remains, preserved in hard drives and backup servers, passed from one trembling hand to another, whispered about in corners of laboratories, studied under dim lights late into the night. But no matter how many graphs are drawn or wavelengths dissected, the truth doesn't feel closer. If anything, it feels further away. Like the object itself took certainty with it, leaving only questions scattered in its wake. The James Webb Space Telescope has moved on. It peers once more at stars long dead, at galaxies curling through time like frozen waves. But for those who saw what it captured, those few, lucky, shaken people who witnessed a sliver of something that defied every rule, nothing feels the same. Because once you've seen the curtain pull back, even just a little, you can't pretend it's closed anymore. Some try to forget. They bury themselves in other projects, claiming it must have been a natural anomaly, a rare comet, a trick of light, an unknown mineral reacting with solar radiation. They tell themselves these things because they have to, because it's easier than confronting the alternative, that something built it, that something sent it, that something came and went. But others, quietly, carefully, are still searching. They listen to the skies differently now. They watch the asteroid belt not as a relic, but as a threshold, a place that has been crossed, a place touched by something unknown. Radio telescopes point where the object vanished, replaying the pulses it left behind, wondering if somewhere out there, something might still be listening. Or worse, waiting. And then there are the dreams. Some of the scientists involved, people grounded in logic and evidence, have begun reporting something strange. Not visions, not hallucinations, just dreams of light gliding silently through space, of metal that hums like music, of stars bending, of silence speaking. Maybe it's just the stress, the overwhelming pressure of knowing you've brushed up against the incomprehensible. Or maybe, just maybe, some part of that object wasn't only seen, but felt, like it left more than heat and data behind, like it reached out just a little before it turned away. There are no answers in the silence that followed, but silence itself can be an answer. Maybe it didn't stay because it didn't need to. Maybe it had no interest in making contact, no reason to stop, no message to deliver. And maybe that's the most haunting part of all, that something could pass through our world, see us and decide that we're not the destination, just scenery. And still, we watched it. We caught a glimpse of something vast, something beyond even the dreams of our ancestors. In that brief shimmer, we saw not aliens, not invaders, but a traveler, indifferent, elegant, alone. Somewhere beyond Saturn now, it moves in silence. Perhaps still observing, perhaps already gone. Maybe it was the first of its kind, or maybe the 100th. How would we know? How many quiet visitors have we missed while looking the wrong way? Because the truth is, this object didn't announce itself. It didn't ask to be noticed. And that should scare us more than anything. If it was meant to avoid detection, it failed. If it was meant to be seen, why? Maybe we weren't supposed to understand. Maybe all we were ever meant to do was notice, to have our silence broken, our arrogance cracked. to be reminded that we are not the apex, that the sky is older and stranger than we can grasp, that in the void things move with purpose, and not all of those purposes are ours. In time, the data will fade. New discoveries will come. The world will turn its attention elsewhere. But for those who were watching that day, and for those who now carry the mystery in their bones, the question remains, echoing quietly at the edges of our collective mind. What was it? A probe? A messenger? A mistake? Or was it something else entirely? Something we don't yet have words for? A kind of technology that isn't about tools but about thought? Not mechanical, not biological, but aware. A sliver of a civilization that doesn't scream into the cosmos like we do, but slips through it silently, precisely, watching the sparks we throw into the dark. In our quest to find life beyond Earth, we imagine noise. We imagine blaring signals, radio waves, beacons. But what if the universe doesn't speak like us? What if it speaks in movement, in silence, in quiet passages through familiar space that only become visible when we are finally ready to see them? The James Webb Space Telescope caught something crossing between Mars and Jupiter. And though it's gone, that moment has changed us. We look at the sky now with a little less certainty, a little more awe. We realize that space isn't just a place full of things we haven't explored. It's full of things we haven't even imagined. And every once in a while, if we're lucky, or perhaps if we're deemed worthy, something lets us see it, just long enough to wonder, just long enough to remember how small we are, and just long enough to ask ourselves, what else is out there, quietly watching us watch the stars?